it's been a while since I've chimed in on anything, but last week was Mental Illness Awareness Week, and then there was World Mental Health Day, and I have been quite kind of quiet. And I just wanted to talk about leaving toxic work environments. We really have to have these open discussions, not about just toxic work environments, but about work trauma, period. Because that's what it is. It's work trauma. And it makes us anxious to go to work, and it leads to panic attacks and all sorts of things, and depression, and all sorts of things that take place because we experience trauma at work. And so I would like to see more dialogue on the trauma, because we say workplace stress to kind of make employers feel comfortable, but we don't have time to make employers feel comfortable. We need to talk about workplace trauma and the things that workplaces do to us. They impact us so negatively that we carry it on to other employers, because we were treated poorly or not supported in the way that we should have, or we were pushed to our brinks, to make us feel like, to be a valued employee, we had to work ourselves into the ground. So in since 2019, I have probably worked in the area that I'm the most passionate about, but has also been some of the most toxic environments that I worked in, as far as work related stress, lack of support, and really overall just dissatisfaction with the job. Now, the interesting thing about all of this is that what I've done over these past few years, I'm actually really, really good at it. And I think for some of us, we are in positions where we are really, really good at, what we do, but the environment is is toxic, and maybe the work itself is very toxic. For me, it has gotten to the point to where, or had gotten to the point to where, my medications have increased, and the number of medications have increased, and dosages have increased. And, there was almost a dread, well, not almost, but a dread and anxiety and panic attacks before, clocking in to work. And I had to, kept telling myself that, pushing and, you know, going through this, you'll feel better at the end of the shift, that all of these things were worth it. Um, because I had a goal of getting my clinical license. And I had to realize that this route that I was taking to get my clinical license just isn't for me. Um, and it made me doubt a lot of things in terms of wanting to be in the field of mental health, after 15 years. It made me doubt, how I felt about certain things regarding, hospitalizing people against their will. Um, it really challenged me ethically, and, and really made me frustrated with systems that refer people to treatment, or to refer people to get help for options that don't really exist, and for resources, reach out for resources that don't exist in the communities that they live in. Um, so, you know, for me, dealing with toxic environments goes beyond the just individual people. It goes into the macro level of the site. It goes into the programming, the the lack of support from senior management. It goes to looking at, fails on how to properly support clinicians. And, all of those things, I look at as toxic. And, you know, the hardest thing for anyone who's in a toxic work environment is sometimes to leave, because you don't always have the backup plan that you would like to have to exit. And sometimes when you talk to people about it, you get a lot of toxic positivity. Um, and those people will say, well, just hang in there, or, you'll be okay. You're tough. And those things don't help. They do more than invalidate your experience. They make it seem as if your experience is not to the point to where it's debilitating. And for me, when I am at a point to where medications have been increased and I've gone from being on one medication to three, it's like, it's like this isn't working. But we're trained, and notice I said trained, to think that overworking ourselves and pushing our mental well-being to the side is a badge of honor, and that if one person does it and accepts the mistreatment of management, then that means that everyone should be able to do it. And I personally do not agree with that at all. It can be very difficult when you get up to go to work, and the idea of walking in a building or logging on from home stresses you to the point to where you are in tears. And for a lot of people, that is their everyday reality, and there can feel like there's no escape. And so it's almost like you have to treat it as a crisis. And I am excellent in crisis management. That is one of the things that I excel at as in the field of mental health. And so when we're looking at leaving toxic work environments, obviously the ideal situation is, okay, we want to create a safety net. As the moment that you realize you get a red flag that this may be a toxic environment for you, I would not wait until you see another example that it's a toxic environment. I would begin to immediately search for other opportunities for yourself. And let me tell you this, do not let how long you've been there, if you've only been there for a short time, do not let that stop you from applying to other places. Do not feel like you're obligated to stay somewhere 6 months or a year. You're not obligated. I'm going to tell you this. If something happens to you because you have an emotional or a mental breakdown or crisis, the only thing they're going to do is see if you have the sick leave or the leave available to take, and then they may just replace your position if you decide to leave. If something happens to you and you drop down that day, in a few weeks, your position is going to be posted. And so you are replaceable by your company. But you have to ask yourself, are you replaceable to yourself? and sometimes we give ourselves to these companies um, who don't value you as a employee and don't value your well-being as a human being at all. And that's the thing that you have to look for. That's the red flag. You have to listen to other people, because in interviews, they will tell you whatever they want to tell you, and then they will do a switcheroo. Um, your shift may not be what you thought it was going to be. And then you get there, and all the employees that they were saying were, had such a dedicated thought about the work, they're all complaining, and none of them are willing to say anything. So the second thing, after you notice that there's a red flag and you begin to move forward and looking for something different, I'm going to tell you, even if you enjoy your job, that doesn't necessarily mean the environment isn't toxic. I have always enjoyed emergency mental health, but that environment is very toxic for me, and it's very ethically challenging for me. It challenged my ethics all the way. And so knowing that, I know that that is not the field that I can work in full time. I just can't do it. The second thing that you need to do, because one thing I want you to do, never stop interviewing. Even if you have a job that you love, never stop interviewing. Always look around and see what skills are available or skills they're asking for. Always look around at new jobs. Always put yourself out there so that you can see, what, what the field may look like and what other environments may look like as well. So, you got to get to number two. So, number two, you have to decide if you're in a toxic work environment, if you're going to say something. This is the bigger issue, and the issue that I always have. I am usually always a person who is willing to say something about my environment being toxic. With that being said, I can generally be labeled as a target because, I speak out and speak up for myself. And I not only speak out and speak up for myself, I have actions to follow up. And so if you do that, I just want to let you know that sometimes your environment may become even more toxic and more hostile towards you, even though it's not supposed to, it can. So you need to be mindful of that. Third, create a safety net for yourself. If you can manage to be there a little bit longer, start putting money to the side just in case you have to do an emergency. I can't do this anymore, I need a break. Four, have support people who can and who are willing to support you for maybe a month or two, or help you out for a month or two if you have to make an emergency break from that toxic environment. Because I'm telling y'all, when you get to that point to where it is impacting your health at a certain level, there's no pep talk that anyone can give you. And any therapist would tell you, no, you don't need to be here anymore. This is too damaging for you. And you don't need to listen to people who are saying, oh, you only have this left, you only have that. You need to close your ears. You have to close your ears, because at the end of the day, it does not matter. And I want to be very clear. It does not matter how much longer you have, because it can take 2 days and you can have a complete breakdown and not be able to work for 6 months. And people don't get that. And so you have to always do what's best for you, even when things are due, even when you are wondering where things are going to come from. You can't hold on to someone else's toxic positivity and try to make it through a situation that is basically killing you emotionally, because you're not going to have the energy for the next opportunity that comes up and arises. And I think we're on number 5. But surround yourself with people who are going to be not just understanding, but empathetic to what you're going through, which is very, very important. You don't need someone who's trying to be your therapist. I have a therapist. I don't need anyone to be my therapist. And during that time, when you're saying, this is toxic to me to where it's impacting my health, you need someone in your corner who understands what that looks like for you. You need someone in your corner who understands that if this hits you the wrong way on the wrong day, that this may take you out, as I said before, for the next 6 to 8 months. And it may be best that you drop everything right then and there so that you can break for a week or two so that you can make it for the next year. And you have to be around people who understand that. And there's just no way around it. You have to be around people who understand that, sometimes you have to make a temporary sacrifice that doesn't feel comfortable, that doesn't make sense to you. To them, it doesn't make sense to them, but for people who've known what you've been through and know your history with your mental health, know that if this doesn't happen, then you may end up not being able to work for another year because you have become so sick in regards to your mental health and mental wellness. I will always say, in toxic environments, when you can, stand up for yourself. If it's going to make the environment more toxic for you, then you probably want to be more mindful of how you navigate that space. For me, I will always stand up for myself, and at the end of the day, I will always make moves and decisions and actions that reflect how I feel and reflect how I feel about protecting my mental health and wellness. Because at the end of the day, that is the most valuable thing that I have, is my energy. And if my job is taking my energy away from me during the time that I'm with them, then I don't have anything else to give for the rest of the day. I don't have to give that to my daughter. I don't have that to give to myself because I'm constantly in recovery from the trauma that I went through on my job. So that's all I wanted to talk about in terms of workplace trauma and workplace stress and toxic work environments. I hope that you're having a wonderful day. Be sure to check out the podcast at healingblackwomen.com, where we talked about knowing your limits and how to keep from sacrificing yourself. All right, everyone. Bye.